Well, welcome back to TuckerAllen Live. I'm Scott Trout, and I'm back moderating this Friday's edition of TuckerAllen Live, where we'll bring you some information with regards to wills, trusts, estates, and everything related to that to kind of break it down for you. So thanks for joining. I'll be watching the comment section today for the 10 to 15 minutes that we're with you. I'm once again joined by attorney up in the Kansas City area, Kevin Mason. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me today, Scott.
Yeah, so we wanted to just talk a little bit about some of the topics we haven't covered. I know we try to cover something new every Friday, and today's no different. But let's talk about the word that we often use, especially in estate planning, fiduciary. So maybe you can break down what a fiduciary is, and kind of we'll start there.
Sure. So fiduciary is one of those terms that I think people just throw around a lot. And I know for myself, at least, going into law school, I had no idea what a fiduciary was or what they did or even what that word meant. And people are saying it all the time. So it's pretty simple. All that a fiduciary is just another person or an organization that's going to act on behalf of you or you and your spouse or something to that nature. They're acting on behalf of another person or persons.
You know, the whole area, well, maybe all of law tends to be peculiar in that we throw these terms around. Fiduciary is one of them,
Sure.
And they're interchangeable. And you may hear, it's interesting, particularly in estates and wills and trusts, you hear personal representative, you hear trustee, you hear fiduciary, my appointee. People use words, and I think they just go with them, and they may be interchangeable, but maybe talk about where can you find a fiduciary, where is it likely, and that way people can kind of get a better understanding now that we know what it is.
Sure. So fiduciary is one of those kind of blanket terms. I feel like it's overarching. It encompasses a lot of other terms that we use. So places where you're going to find a fiduciary in the world of estate planning, the trustee for a trust, that person is going to be a fiduciary. The guardian for a minor child, that person would be a fiduciary. The person that you designate as your agent for your power of attorney, that person, they're going to be a fiduciary as well.
You make mention of the power of attorney, and it's interesting. You don't hear a lot of people use, "Oh, this is my fiduciary." It's a big word. No. I know, but this is my attorney or my attorney in fact or my power of attorney, or they're acting on my behalf. I mean, that's really, as you described, the definition. And I think now the reason I thought this was appropriate is to bring it up. And so when people hear fiduciary, they kind of know what it means. So maybe we can talk about the duties. Now we know kind of maybe what they do, or they're kind of the power of attorney, the trustee, the guardian. What are the duties that you commonly find for a fiduciary?
Sure. So just kind of broadly for all fiduciaries, and then I might kind of give an example of something a little more specific here. But just broadly, what a fiduciary, their duties are, is just to act in the best interest of their client. So whoever, or maybe not client, might not be the right word depending on what type of fiduciary this is, but to act in the best interest of that person who has put them in this position. So the fiduciary, what they're going to do is they're going to act in the best interest. They're going to act with good faith. And so they're most legally and ethically bound to act in good faith and act in the best interest of this person who has named them a fiduciary.
So these duties, I mean, they're often, I imagine, they're outlined in the instruments you mentioned, like the power of attorney. It says this is what they should be doing, right?
Yes, absolutely. So power of attorney is a great one. And like a power of attorney that you would get here at TuckerAllen, that's a little bit more robust. We are going to list out all of the different things that fiduciary can and cannot do, and what role they're taking on. But on the flip side, kind of for a trustee of a trust, which is probably the next place that we most common will see a fiduciary in this estate planning realm. So their duties are actually outlined by the state of Missouri. So we have laws here in the state that were set up by the Uniform Trust Code that we adopted as a state. And within that, it outlines all of the duties of these trustees.
I wasn't really avoiding it, but I'm pretty good at procrastinating. I needed a trust. When I found TuckerAllen, all our questions were answered, all of our fears allayed.
You want your wishes in place, so there's no guessing, no stress on the children.
Basically, they talk about what you need, what's important to you. It was more conversational, really very simple.
When we talk about the fiduciary and the duties, it reminds me it's a good time for someone who's thinking, well, I know I have a power of attorney, pull it out. Let's take a look at their duties. Make sure it's descriptive. Maybe it meets what you really want them to do, and have someone like a TuckerAllen take a look at it and make sure it meets the needs that you have, and really get a better understanding of what that fiduciary is supposed to do on your behalf. That's a big thing to understand. And, we want to get people comfortable with these terms because they are used a lot by attorneys that practice in this area. And that's why we wanted to kind of bring it to the forefront of your attention. Mm-hmm. So what are some of the mistakes that someone listening, watching right now, thinking, okay, I get it. I now know what my fiduciary does. I know what it means. I know where to find it. But how do I identify a mistake? What are some of the mistakes they may make?
Sure. So whenever I'm going to talk about these mistakes that are commonly made, the first thing I'm going to do right now is just quickly run through just a handful of the duties that the state of Missouri outlines for them. So then I can kind of roll back to those in just a second. So just broadly, the duties that the state that they outline for the trustee of a trust, which again is kind of where we see a lot of these common mistakes occurring. So we have the duty to administer the trust, which is just saying you have to do what the trust document says, act in good faith. Then we have the duty of loyalty, which again is just saying that you're going to administer this trust in the best interest of the beneficiaries. Then we have the duty to inform and report, which is just the duties to keep those beneficiaries reasonably informed. And so then kind of rolling into those common mistakes that you're going to see most often with a trustee for a trust like this is that they're going to fail one of those duties that I just had. A really common one is that duty to inform and report, just because people don't know about it. If it's not something as a trustee, being a trustee it's a job. It's something that you have to put effort into, and to administer that trust well, you're going to have to sit down and do it. And it's not always outlined in the trust that you have this duty to inform and report like it is in the statute. So a lot of times people just don't realize that, and they don't do it. So they don't report things to the beneficiaries' actions that they're taking, or they don't inform them. So that's kind of a big one that we see fairly often, I would say.
I know we take it for granted sometimes when we're talking about a power of attorney, or we're talking about a will or a trust, that someone watching has all of these instruments. Mm-hmm. They may be thinking, okay, now I know what a fiduciary is, but I don't have a fiduciary, right?
Sure.
I mean, TuckerAllen, you guys do powers of attorney, right?
Yep.
And you don't have to do the whole thing. You can just single those out because, you know, especially during this pandemic, we've been talking about this it's 42 weeks now, mm-hmm. And who's counting? But the point is that, look, especially healthcare and finance,
Yes.
We don't know what tomorrow brings. We don't know what can happen. And we've said, if not now, when are you going to do something about it? And so we do take it for granted, but maybe it is something you guys do, but you can single out the power of attorney if you need someone to do that.
Absolutely. That would be the first thing that I would say to anyone that doesn't have any sort of estate plan set up, especially right now, just because it's so simple as just coming into contact with someone at work that did test positive, and now all of a sudden you're locked in your house for the next 10 or 14 days. I can't remember what the number is now, mm-hmm. But now you're stuck in there, and maybe you aren't able to go to the bank and do things, or whatever it is, or one of my good friends actually just this last week, he broke his leg in a car accident. And so now, he's laid up in his house and he's not going anywhere. And that's another good time, to have a power of attorney, is whenever something like that happens. And those things are happening all the time. Like you mentioned the healthcare power of attorney, that's a big one right now too, because mm-hmm. only one person is being allowed into the hospital. So it would be nice to have someone designated to take action for you. So those two, we can single them out. They're painless, they're quick, they're easy. I would highly suggest to get those two, if nothing else.
Yeah. And I know we really raised that issue in the summer months as we talk about this applying for college age kids. It's something, the mistake I made, where I've got 5 kids and I've had 3 go on to college, and you never think about needing a financial power of attorney until you need one. And I'm thinking I needed to do something for my daughter. I'm thinking I don't know, I don't have it. Now what do I do, right? And so I think one of the maybe misconceptions when we talk about planning and estates and using those words and fiduciary, people are like, well, I'm healthy, I'm not sick, I don't need any of that right now. But the financial piece, as you suggest, can be as simple as you're stuck in your home because you're either in rehab or you broke your leg and you're not mobile enough and you need someone to just help you transact financial stuff for you.
Right.
And they can act. That fiduciary can act on your behalf. It's not morbid. It's not, thinking too far down the road. It's for the unforeseen consequences of whether anything. I mean, it could be travel. Eventually we travel back internationally. You get delayed. You can't come back. Someone can handle things for you, right? In the United States, and you're just simply appointing someone to be your representative, right?
Yep, that's it. So if outside of this pandemic and not being able to travel or go places, that's a huge reason to have a POA is, you go on vacation to Mexico and your flight gets delayed because there's a hurricane for 2 days and you just need someone to go pay your electric bill or your water bill or whatever it is. And that's a huge reason to have one. And that's one of those deals where it's sure nice to have that done before you leave instead of showing back up home and your electricity's out because you couldn't have anybody go pay it. And now you got to deal with all that. So yes, I would absolutely.
Yeah, it's almost someone the other day, they didn't realize their ATM card was expired. Now it can't be used. And let's say they're holed up in their house. They can't go into the bank. The bank won't do anything until you go into the bank.
Right.
And so there is these things. It's pre-pandemic. I think we were all guilty of procrastination. Oh, I got plenty of time for that. And I think that's when we started this, if not now, when kind of theory, which does, gosh, I can't imagine anyone not needing, not wanting, not doing, or taking the steps to get a POA, whether it's financial or health right now, because it's the 2 easiest documents you'll ever get. And it's cost effective. It's not a lot of money and it can be done very, very rapidly. And you have some peace of mind. It is just 1 step. We're not saying stop there, but at least it's like learning to walk. It's the first step, right?
Absolutely. That, like I said, I'd say that's your first step in any sort of estate planning is at least get that power of attorney, healthcare and financial, just get that taken care of. And then later, if you want to talk about a trust or a will or whatever it is at some other point, then you've already got that step taken care of. You don't have to worry about it and you can just move right into the other things. So I would.
And if we're talking about the fiduciary, and I think it's really important that people watching, they take the step to get this, say, power of attorney or a trust, and you appoint a fiduciary, have a conversation with that fiduciary, let them know that you're appointing them, let them know what a fiduciary means. Because here we are, we just, defined it for the people creating the instrument, but perhaps the person appointed isn't watching right now. So don't you agree it's important to have a conversation with them?
Yes, it's incredibly important to have a conversation with that person and just to let them know what you're doing, why you're doing what you're doing, what this means for them. Just give them a little heads up instead of them getting a phone call out of the blue to say, hey, now I need you to go do something because as it turns out, you are my power of attorney, you are acting as my fiduciary in some capacity in whatever portion of my estate plan it is. And also one thing to think about whenever you're naming somebody for a trustee or a POA to be your fiduciary, make sure you're choosing somebody you really trust. You're giving them a license you're putting a huge amount of faith into this person and a huge amount of trust into this person. Whenever you're giving somebody your financial POA, that's giving them a huge amount of power over your finances to do things. And as in the trustee side of things, after you passed away and somebody's going to administer your trust, you want to choose somebody that's going to do what you wanted them to do what you had outlined in your trust. So that's just a very, very important thing is to think hard and make sure you're choosing that right person to act.
Yep. So, well, if you're watching and you want to get a POA done or you want more information because we've piqued your interest and now you're beginning to think maybe I need what they're talking about, you can reach out to Kevin or the attorneys at TuckerAllen. You can give them a call at 866-335-5700. 3375 or find them on the web at TuckerAllen.com. You can actually schedule a consult there. You can do it just like this via Zoom. Don't have to go out of the comfort of your home. You can do it on the phone as well. Just get more information. Really just take the first step. That's the most important thing. So you can find them on the web at TuckerAllen.com. Kevin, thanks for joining today on Tucker Allen Live.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, continue to tune in, albeit we do this weekly on Fridays at 1 o'clock. I hope you find it as useful as I do to hear from the attorneys at Tucker Allen. So until next time, we'll see you in 2 weeks right here at Tucker Allen Live.